Well, until there are policies that limit phosphorus, agriculture is relying on best practices. But there are other factors that can affect algae in Lake Erie. And joining me now by Skype is Kristy Meyer from the Ohio Environmental Council. Kristy, it's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, Kristy. Thank you for having me today.
All right, let's jump into some local things that you're doing in Ohio. You know, the EPA is providing $12 million to address the algal bloom problem, and about over $7 million of that is going to come to Ohio. Is that money going to be used again to encourage more of these best practices that we've heard about in terms of farmers and agriculture?
Most certainly. So they're talking about using that for manure storage. They're talking about using that for precision soil testing and cover crops, as well as some monitoring of the rivers.
All right, so when we talk about farms and agriculture as being one of the key culprits in algal blooms, what kind of farms are we talking about? Are these mostly family farms? Are we talking about large corporate farms?
Yeah, well, no longer are we talking about the small mom and pop farms that you and I might think of fondly. They are very much large farms, and they're very much unregulated for the most part. And as you know, if I went to open up a business today, I would be required to apply for a number of permits. And like I said, a lot of these farms are unregulated.
You're doing a lot of work, I would say, you know, on the ground and talking with farmers. And what is the biggest concern coming out of algal bloom season that is now officially at an end? What is the concern in Ohio now and moving forward with the health of Lake Erie? What are you talking about?
Well, I think that one of the things that you hear, and I think one of the former speakers talked about this, is, farmers aren't bad people. And I'd like to reiterate that. Farmers aren't bad people. They don't wake up in the morning and think, oh, I'm going to throw away a bunch of money today and go pollute our waterways. I think what we're hearing is that the farming industry is really focused on incentives and voluntary, and they're worried about any sort of regulation. And what we're seeing at the state, from the state General Assembly and the administration, and what we're seeing from the feds and Congress, is largely more incentive-based voluntary actions. And largely, collectively, they aren't going to hit the mark. We hear from scientists that we need to reduce the amount of phosphorus by 40%. That is not going to happen with just what we've seen happen here in the Maumee watershed in Ohio. And now we're actually hearing from scientists that we need to reduce the amount of phosphorus even more than 40%. So we have a long way to go.
It would seem to be a long way to go because, again, Gordon Walker, who just spoke with us previously, was talking about now there has to be that political will. And you would think that after people lost their water supply for a couple of days and it finally thrust this into the forefront, that there would be the political will to do something a bit stronger than those recommendations. What are you hearing?
That is a really good question. They all are good questions, but that's a great question. So the political will, my biggest fear is that we're heading into winter right now and that people are going to start to forget. And the political will is going to disappear amongst the public. I still sense the lack of political will in our General Assembly in the state of Ohio, in our administration, in terms of regulation. They're willing to clamp down on the wastewater treatment plants or the sewage treatment plants. They're willing to clamp down on golf courses, and we're talking about all those other things, but we're not talking about regulation on agricultural farm fields. We do have some legislation that's about to be debated here actually yet this week, which provides an opportunity for some amendments such as maybe banning manure on frozen and snow-covered ground, which we actually do have a piece of legislation that was introduced but likely will not go anywhere because of the fact that it was introduced by a Democrat. And then also there are a number of farmers that are being trained right now in how to properly apply chemical fertilizer as a result of a bill that passed earlier this year. So properly applying chemical fertilizer and how to store it. There is a piece of legislation that was introduced to couple that with manure. So also training people that apply manure as fertilizer on how to properly apply it and how to properly store it.
Kristy Meyer from the Ohio Environmental Council. We know that we'll stay in touch with you, Kristy, for all the latest developments that are happening in Ohio. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
And that is going to do it for Great Lakes Now, the algae crisis. Thanks to all of our guests, and for more in-depth reporting on algal blooms and all things Great Lakes, just go to greatlakesnow.org. For all of us at Detroit Public TV, I'm Kristy McDonald. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.